Welcome to another episode of Field Notes, insights and observations for the travel marketer. On today's episode, my friend and Vice President of Marketing for Advanced Local, Bart Thau, is stopping by. There are two articles about what Google is doing in the AI space that we think you should know about. As I said, our guest on today's show is my dear friend and Vice President of Marketing, Bart Thau. Bart, how are you, my friend?
I am doing so well, I can't even express it.
So the setup here is that you and I spend a lot of time talking about AI and how it reflects on marketing, but we've done almost all of it either on the phone or via text. And I thought, why don't we put it in a public square at least so people can, enjoy our back and forth about this. And the setup for today's conversation is, if you're familiar at all with computer science or computers at all, you might be familiar with Moore's law, the idea that computing power doubles every 2 years, But there is an AI equivalent, and I don't know that it's been codified, Bart, to the same way that Moore's law has, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of AI's power doubles every 3.6 to 7 months, as opposed to the 2 years that you get with actual chips. Which brings us to the first article that I wanted to talk about today, which was about Google saying that their AI summaries that come from Gemini are monetizing to the same level as the searches that are found below them. And as if you're not watching the video component of this, Bart is calling foul on all of this. So, Bart, when you read an article like that, what comes to mind first for you?
I mean, the first thing I want to ask is monetizing at the same rate for whom? For Google? Great. I mean, if I'm an investor, I certainly want to hear that AI is not disrupting one of the best advertising companies as far as performance and revenue goes. That's great. Alphabet's a great company. But if I'm an advertiser, I am very concerned because all of us have seen a drop in organic traffic. We're all wondering about, well, what's the place of PPC in the traditional sense? And if we're only going to be sort of adapting PPC to AI and the search results, where's the differentiation really? Are you now going to ruin something that for most searchers out there have thought as a great replacement or at least addition to some of your standard search results? That's the concern that I have.
And so when you see something like this, you've worked in this industry for a long time in one way, shape, or form. As a marketer in the travel space, how much should we be reactive to these news articles that seem to come out every 15 minutes? And how much should we sit on it for a couple days and let it marinate and see how it fits into our strategy and be aware of what's going on as opposed to react to what's going on?
I think the best thing all of us can do is to take a breath. This event by Google was a press release. It was an event press release, but in effect, it was a press release. We're not even sure because of the back end work and how it's a black box that anything Google says, we don't know how it's going to affect us downstream. So I think, take a couple of days. I mean, heck, take a couple of months. Let's just really stay the course and let's look at what is actually happening to our marketing results overall. Number one, we're seeing a drop in organic search. Number two, we're all playing with this idea that if we do better content and answer the questions that our customers are asking in the LLMs, that we are more than likely going to have our content ingested and suggested as responses and even cited as responses. I think those are the biggest things that we can do. Secondly, I'd say we need to be experimental. If we're not using AI on a regular basis, if we're not playing our customer and putting our fake customer hat on and doing the searches that we need to do, both in PPC and in LLM land, then we're not doing our companies justice by understanding what our own users are experiencing out there. And then I think thirdly, we have to adapt where we can. we always want to have there's always something we can do better. Maybe it's leaning on other channels a little bit harder if SEO isn't performing as well. If we're not seeing immediate results, which you're not, out of a content marketing play to get sucked up into LLMs, then you might have to have your paid social work a little harder. You might have to look at investing in content today and preparing management that a lot of those investments are going to pay off in 4 to 6 months, not 4 to 6 weeks. So I think all of these things we're going to have to do to be disciplined, to not be afraid, and to try to slowly steer ourselves towards where we see the results and the audiences coming to.
One of the things that I have gotten tremendous joy out of is using these LLMs, these large language models, and using all of them in tandem, right? So playing around with Perplexity and, comparing it to Claude and comparing it to ChatGPT. But I wanted to share this one with you because you've been kind of going along this journey where I've been using chat to help me create marketing themed Dungeons and Dragons campaigns that I can teach at the university level. So, but what I've been doing now, and I think I want to share this because I think this is actually a great way if you're somebody in the travel space who's like, I need to get better at telling stories. So what I have done is I've started playing Dungeons and Dragons with ChatGPT as the DM, but Chat's job is to grade my storytelling in response to its prompts. So not like telling me what the player is going to do, but as I explain what the player is doing, I want it to rip it apart like it's a screenplay, which then makes you get better, faster at responding to, in your case, in the travel space, to the market, because you've spent all of this time arguing with your LLM about how to get better at telling stories. And I stand fast that if you're not playing and literally playing with these LLMs, you're going to be left behind, because you need to create a passion. And this is something that you and I share, this curiosity of this space. You need to create a passion that I know where this is going because I'm in it all the time and I'm using it to teach me how to play chess or get better at gardening or learn how to whatever. Your thoughts on my insane experiments in ChatGPT?
I think it's great because what you're doing is you're learning how to make it useful to you. I heard a quote today from a social ad that said something like, "We need to stop using LLMs like a child." And I think really what we're trying to say is we need to stop using AI like it's a curiosity, and we need to use it like a tool. There are folks that are working for us that are thinking, well, if I use AI, I'm cheating.
Right.
I mean, if you use a shovel to dig a hole, are you somehow cheating? I mean, no, of course not. It's a tool that we need to fully embrace. And I think we need to also push the boundaries of that tool to see not what mayhem we can create, but how fast can we operate and get our output increased? How quickly can we increase the output that we're trying to bring to our companies every day to be the most productive employee that there has ever lived within our company? I think all of us should be striving to do that. And if it's using AI, that's great. But the flip side of that, of course, is making sure that it's our creativity that is on the output, not just in, out, let me publish. That's that's going to be bringing our output to the lowest common denominator. If we're doing what you said, which is let me use AI to make me better and faster and more creative and to pump me with ideas so that this engine can get a better output. I think that's exactly how we should be using AI.
So I will put both of these stories in the show notes if you want to read them. But the other one is about this study. And right now there's only one study. So I'll go back to what Bart said 10 minutes ago. Pause when you hear this and do not have a visceral reaction because you're about to. The study was about 25,000 individual searches. So I'm assuming that's assigned to devices. It doesn't really define what individual is, but we'll say 25,000 devices did a search on Google and then did a search on an LLM. And what it showed that is if you're in the first frame of Google, because we don't do pages anymore, in the first frame, you have a 25% chance, a 1 in 4 chance of showing up as the answer on the LLM when they ask the same question. And while when you read this article, it's going to frame that is exciting news, I immediately thought, no, that's a 75% chance that I don't get shown to them, even if I'm ranking number one on Google. Now, I have two questions for you, Bart. Question one is putting your futurist hat on. Right now, we should obviously be doing all three of these, SEO, AEO, and GEO at the same time. Any sense on how quickly that's going to change, given how quickly it has changed in the last 24 months? And when you read that story, what was kind of your gut reaction to that?
Well, first of all, what I reacted to mostly was how we're all finally waking up to how crowded the Google front page, first page has become, so that even with PPC and the loads of money, the dump trucks that were backing up to Google's door and piling into their bank accounts, that what we're paying for has had diminished effectiveness for us, diminished value over time. So in effect, Google has been able to maintain a monopoly on PPC and reduce the value that it's brought to its customers while maintaining incredible cash flows and
Sure.
incredible
Yeah.
results. That's really staggering. As far as the long game, I believe that it's all about the consumer. How quickly is the consumer going to change its habits? And I think we have not yet reached the tipping point. And I don't know how long it's going to take us to reach that tipping point. But my prediction is this, that it's coming very soon. And once we reach it, the other side of that tipping point is not the same amount of time that it took us to get here. It's going to be so fast on the downside that everyone is going to say bye bye to traditional search as soon as they have been able to utilize and get into their habits how to use the new form. And I don't even know what we're going to call it. Are we going to call it GEO? I don't know. We're
Sure.
going to call it something, but it's really what we always wanted. And we're just now waking up to this. We wanted to converse to be able to get results. We wanted to humanize something that was a very I'll call it programmatic type of response in the sense that we're almost having to program our search engine to yield the results we want. With voice search, we thought we had it. Where's your Alexa now? I couldn't tell you where my Alexa is. It's probably in a trash heap somewhere or in a box. So the promise has never presented itself as much as it has presented itself now that we are actually getting what we wanted, which is a human feeling experience with search and response, with living our lives in relationship to the internet.
Do you think Alexa's a great jumping off point? Because do you think the inflection point or the tipping point will be a sorry, Alexa's mad that I'm talking to her. Which
You know where your Alexa
which
is.
serves my point is, do you think that that tipping point will still be voice, as because what you alluded to is that we wanted an interaction, and I'm wondering if voice ends up being that catalyst that pushes us over because of your ability to click a hotkey on your iPhone and just talk to your LLM, whichever one you picked, as opposed to having to take it out and start typing queries, because I wouldn't necessarily ask you a question that way if we were just talking.
You're on to exactly where this is going, where devices become basically impersonal. They become like a washing machine. Is Maytag better? Well, it used to be, but now is it
Sure.
really? Who cares? Just give me a damn washing machine. I think what we're really going to need is a screen. And what's behind the screen, the chipset, and all that stuff is going to become something that is no longer branded because we won't give two shakes about whether it's Intel or Nvidia or AMD or whether it's Core 4 or vPro. We don't care. All we're going to care about is how can I, as a part of my natural life, start interacting with something that's going to provide me what I need, because these laptops and these phones are like weights in our pockets. They're like strapping on ankle weights and trying to run a marathon. Why would you do that? We need to free ourselves from the tech and its appearance in our lives. It needs to stop weighing us down. We need to stop carrying backpacks for anything other than books. Because what we really need to do is we need to have the technology become so integrated with us, and I'm not talking internally and added
Sure. Yeah,
surgically
yeah.
necessarily, but it needs to be so much a part of our environment that we naturally just start interacting with it and it starts interacting with us.
You have seen over the course of, let's say, the last decade that analog mediums start to increase in popularity, right? Cassettes, vinyl records, physical media, those sorts of things. If I were to ask you in the travel space what you think, and I'm asking you to absolutely guess, right? And so this is an unfair question, but I love unfair questions. But if I had to ask you in the travel space to guess what might be an analog that gains popularity as technology becomes more and more ubiquitous, like you said, we end up just having it with us, what would you think would be an analog that would complement that, right? So think like actual film cameras or anything like that. What would you think?
I see teenagers today pulling out their parents' old digital cameras and taking photos with those things. And then they like the challenge of how do they get that to a digital device that's then connected to the internet so that they can then post it onto Instagram. And for them, it's something cool. The same things happened with sort of instant Polaroids, right? Except they're this big
Yep.
instead of this big. I mean, Polaroids were the first Instagram, and I'm sure Instagram was sort of model on it. So what I think this is, honestly, is I think this is the last sputters and starts of the complete death of those things. I mean, you talk about the resurgence of vinyl. I mean, that's cool, but in effect, how practical is that? Can I take that vinyl and pack it up and take it to the beach
Sure.
and listen to
Yep.
it? No, of course not. I would never do that because now those things have become curiosities and collectors. And they're small, small slivers compared to the Tower Records imprint on our culture. You have to hunt for the specialty store because it's cool, but it's not going to take over Main Street tomorrow. So I really think that what we're moving to is going to leave all of that behind, and we're not really going to have much in the travel space that looks like that, except for content. And it's never been about the medium. It's never been about, I got a paper ticket or something like that. It's never been about that. It's all about what types of content am I producing. I can certainly see while we're doing so much short form and low attention span stuff right now, content is probably going to have a long form resurgence, especially in the travel space. Now, that's not to say that you're not going to take that hour-long documentary on how to best enjoy Amelia Island and then turn it into 200 little shorts. You're absolutely going to do that. But I think the long form content piece is going to be something that we start to see more and more of, and that people, counter to the trend, are going to start saying, I want to have deeper engagement. I want to make my interactions more than 10 and 15 seconds.
When you think about all of these things together, so long form content, digital cameras that don't connect to the internet and figuring out how to get that online, cassette tapes, vinyl records, real film cameras, Polaroids, all of that stuff. Is it that the consumer wants more friction back in their life? Is it too seamless that they look for that friction that gives them some joy?
I think people are looking for how to entertain themselves. And sometimes friction can be entertaining, process can be entertaining. Why do people who can go out and buy a ready-made dresser at any rooms to go across the country or upscale that,
Sure.
the old Ethan Allen or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever, why do they go into their garage, purchase thousands of dollars in woodworking equipment, put at risk their fingers and thumbs, and try to produce this stuff on their own? It's because we're looking to entertain ourselves. And I think that there's a segment of the population that will always be looking for how to better fulfill their days. I don't think we're all going to just wake up one day and be in a state of Star Trek mindfulness and, dispense with currency and frivolous activity and consumerism. I think these are things, again, friction, it's interesting, it's fun, but when it comes to the utility, we're going to take utility and try to make it as frictionless as possible because utility is necessary for a better functioning society overall.
Bart, thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, man. It was really good. I enjoyed it.